Welcome to Module 1. I hope you're as excited to get started as I am to be here. We're going to start with the leadership mindset. We're going to talk about self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And we've got 4 topics for today, but before I get into that, I want to give you a context for all the modules really. If you remember when you were learning to drive a car, or learning any skill really, but we'll stick with driving a car, you're very conscious of every little thing. You're at 10 and 2, you're thinking about where the turn signal is, you're figuring out which pedal's the gas and which one's the brake. You might even get them mixed up every now and then. When you are doing all that, you're actually using the front part of your brain, your frontal lobe, to do all that processing, and you're very aware of every little detail. And what you have to do is continue to practice and practice and practice until it becomes a learned skill. And what are the phrases you hear? You hear, oh, it's in the back of my mind, or it's subconscious. Well, that's physically true. When you learn something, it moves to the back side of your brain. So it doesn't take up this valuable frontal lobe context anymore. Now it's in the back of your brain. So when you're driving, you don't think gas pedal, brake pedal, turn signal, 10 and 2, all that kind of stuff. You just think, go that way at 60 miles an hour. And your body just does the rest. Well, learning all this leadership stuff is going to be a similar exercise. At first, it's going to be very much in the front of your mind. You're going to have to continually remind yourself and consciously make decisions to do things. And that's perfectly normal. And that's what I want you to understand. It's normal that you don't just know all this stuff, just like you didn't just know how to drive a car. But over time, that stuff's going to move to the back of your brain, and you're just going to be a natural leader. And people ask, you're such a natural leader, and you're going to think, no, it took a lot of work to get here. This was not natural. And so it's normal. All of the stuff we're going to do, you need to practice it over and over. And when you have a step back or you miss a step, don't worry about it. Keep practicing, keep going. So all that said, today's topics that go with our self-awareness and emotional intelligence, we're going to talk about a mindset shift, and then we'll talk about self-awareness. We'll move into emotional intelligence. Those are the 3 topics. And then I'll talk a little bit about how to put that into practice, and that'll lead straight into your assignment and reflection questions for the day. So let's get started with the mindset shift. All right, so what do I mean when I say a mindset shift? Well, the main thing that I'm after here is, as an individual contributor, the way you get measured, the way you get paid, the way you get promoted is by doing a thing. You might be writing reports, creating web pages, generating statistics, writing market copy, thousands and thousands of things. Whatever it is, you do that thing. And that's how you get measured and how you get paid. That is your accomplishment. Your output is limited to the hours of a day that you can put into this. And sure, you can get better at it and do more and more over time, but it's your time creating, doing the thing. As a leader, it's a whole different thing. You're no longer measured on your output, on how many things you can do. Instead, you're measured on how well you can create an ecosystem and a team and an environment that allows other people to do those things. That's the mindset shift. You're no longer the doer. You don't do those things anymore. You've got to delegate them. You got to give them away. You need to coach and train others to do them. You have to create the ecosystem that allows it to happen. And that may sound like a subtle difference, but it is not. It is a major, major difference. As a leader, you are multiplying what you can do. The ideal is, instead of you being one person, you're creating 5 other people that are almost as good as you. If you still find yourself saying phrases like, it's faster if I do it myself, or the team just won't understand, or it's too complex for them, you haven't made this mindset shift yet. And that's what we want to work on. Now, making this mindset shift, it's exciting because done correctly, you become that leader that you want to be, and you help enable and empower the team. You delegate a lot of the other stuff. So that's exciting, but it's also scary, because if you've been promoted for being really good at doing something, you're kind of going to drift away from doing it now because you're going to enable others to do it. And that's the mindset shift that we need to happen here. Now, before you can make the mindset shift to where we want to be, you need to be aware of where you are now. So let's move and talk about self-awareness. In her book, The Dark Side of Light Chasers, author Debbie Ford writes that self-awareness is the ability to take an honest look at one's life with no attachment for if it's right or wrong or good or bad. That's a great definition for self-awareness. It's being able to look at who we are and then decide, do we want to change that? What do we want to do about it? Whether it's good or bad or right or wrong. Now, you should already know your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to skill sets and all that. So the self-awareness that I'm talking about is more of your emotional self-awareness, and also an awareness of your impact as a leader. As a leader, everything that you do and say, or don't do and don't say, is magnified 10 times. Your actions, your communication, and your emotion that's communicated through those actions and communications impact everything around you, and they probably do it tenfold what you think they do. I'm going to give you a quick story. I happen to know this is not in the text, so you're getting a bonus by watching the video. I was working with a CEO several years back, 6-8 years back, and it was a small company, 300 or 400 people, so they had a little cafeteria where they would eat lunch. And I was eating lunch with her, and I explained this idea that everything you do as a leader is magnified tenfold. And she said, you know what, Sean? You just connected some dots for me. And she told me this story, that previously she had been at lunch in that same cafeteria with her director of engineering. And they were talking about the kids' soccer games and their houses and just random lunchtime talk. During that conversation, she happened to mention a technology she had seen in the paper. She said, oh, have you seen this? And the director of engineering, oh, no, I haven't seen that yet. Oh, okay. And then they just kind of went on with their day, and she didn't think much else of it. A couple weeks later, at a staff meeting, that engineer starts to bring up that technology as something that the team is investigating and working on. And she goes to him after and she says, why is that technology here? It doesn't seem like it matches. We didn't talk about it at strategy. It's never been part of a plan. Why is this here? And he said, well, because you mentioned it at lunch that one day, and I thought that you wanted me to do something with it. And she was taken aback because she had just talked about her kid's soccer game moments before. Now, the director was well-intentioned and they worked everything out. It was all okay. But the point is, everything that you do as a leader is magnified. You got to be, I'm going to say careful, and I don't mean that you filter, but you just have to think through the impact of everything you do and say, because you're influential. You're a leader. Think about this. The last time you were at a team meeting, how did your mood, how did your emotions impact how you interpreted that meeting? Now take that a step further. How did your mood come out in your communication, your body language, your facial expressions, the words you said or didn't say? Now, how did that impact the room? Did it cause people to speak more or less? Did it cause them to disconnect or engage more? Your emotions drive the ecosystem, the environment of any given meeting, and you just need to be aware of that. It's not about becoming a different person. It's about realizing who you are and how you impact those around you. And to drive into that, what I want to do is I want to dive into our next topic, which is emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence, this term I keep using, or EQ as it's also called? Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and manage our own emotions and the emotions of others. Now, mind you, we don't control the emotions of others, but we become aware of how our emotions and actions impact the emotions and therefore the actions of the people around us. When you are tuned into your EQ, it can be like your own leadership radar. You can tell when something is wrong before something shows up in your office and says, hey, something is wrong, because you're in tune with what you're picking up and with what's going on in your team. And it also means that you know your team really well. One part of emotional intelligence is making sure we're aware of the stories that we tell ourselves. And what I mean by that is the narratives that we make up. So for example, a couple years ago, I was working with a manager, and he had a team member who had been a pretty good performer, but of late, they were not delivering. They were slow, they were late, they were missing meetings. And the manager was very frustrated, and he wanted to respond in that frustrated way. And so in a coaching session, I started to ask about this, and I noticed he was frustrated, and I said, what story are you telling yourself? Why are you frustrated? And the story he was telling himself was that this person had just slacked off and become lazy and wasn't doing their job. And I said, well, where did that story come from? What evidence do you have? Could you tell yourself a different story? He said, well, yeah, I could probably tell a different story. I said, well, how about we ask that person, we go talk to them and find out what's going on, and you address it, you start with facts and find out what's the story here. He did that and found out that and that person was going through some personal challenges, and they actually worked out a really good plan, got through the next couple months, and everything went back to normal. Actually, it went better than normal. Now that team member was even closer to the manager because the manager took the time to understand where that person was in their life. So the story we tell ourselves about any given situation can be largely driven by our own initial emotions, and we need to recognize that and then say, what other story could I tell myself? The other thing you should do with emotional intelligence, and I mentioned this before when I was talking about your impact in team meetings, is be aware of what happens in your body. Your brain tries to tell you about emotions through physical sensations. Some people, their heart races, or they get hot, or they get cold, or they hear a ringing or a beating in their ears, or there's all kinds of physical manifestations. But your body tries to communicate to you when there's a strong emotion. Tune into that and be aware of it, and make a note of what's happening that's causing it. And then later, you can think about, do you want to change your reaction to that? All of this is not about changing who you are. It's about strengthening the skills and talents that you already have so that you can fine-tune them to enable those around you to be even better. Remember, back to our leadership mindset, we're trying to create an ecosystem, an environment that enables everybody to perform. Now, all of this stuff is a muscle that you have to build up. It's not natural. It doesn't come naturally to everybody. So you have to continually practice it. You're going to hit challenges. You're going to have step backs, but that's okay. Keep on working that muscle. Keep it in the front of your brain until it becomes subconscious. So let's move to our last section and let's look at how to take some of this theory we've talked about and put it into practice. All right, so let me give you some general ideas for how to put this into practice. And then in the next section, I'm going to give you specific assignments that go with this course. The first thing that I would suggest is at the start of every day, take 30 seconds to set an intention for the day. Who do you want to show up as? What kind of leader? A really great way to crystallize this is to say, what 2 adjectives would I want my team members and my peers to use to describe me based on what they see from me today? Really think about that. What 2 adjectives would you want them to use? Then, for the rest of the day, drive towards that. Now, the second thing that you could do is get feedback on that. Maybe once a week or at some periodic, talk to your team members, talk to your peers, and say, how am I showing up for you as a leader? What strengths do I have as a leader? Where would you like to see improvements? Now, listen, with feedback, you want to just take it in. Whether you agree or disagree, whether it's good or bad, you just take it in. You can ask for more details. Could you give me examples? How did you come to that conclusion? What did you observe? Don't try to defend or refute, because then they'll stop giving you the feedback. Just take it all in. You don't have to act on all of it. Just take it in, say thank you. Then the third thing to do is to reflect. Maybe at the end of every week, look at, what did I do this week? What adjectives would I use to describe myself as a leader looking back at what I did this week? What would I like to have done more of? What should I have done less of? Where could I have used more self-awareness, more emotional intelligence? These couple practices will come together just to help you get into a cadence and a rhythm. And like I said before, this isn't about changing who you are. It's about developing the strengths you have and fine-tuning them. This is a journey. It's going to take a while to get through this. And it's going to start with this willingness to set an intention, to take feedback, and to make changes. So let me give you some specific assignments relative to this course. All right, so these assignments, you'll find them in the learning platform. The first one is to schedule 2 15-minute leadership reflection sessions for the week. And because most calendar systems, scheduling 15 minutes really messes up the whole half hour, what I challenge you to do is schedule the half hour, do 15 minutes of reflection, and then go for a walk for 15 minutes, or do something physical to get up and move around. That's good for you as a person and as a leader. In this reflection session, what I want you to do is reflect on one situation where your emotions impacted those around you significantly. And when you think through that, and this is a form you'll fill out in the platform, what was the situation? What was going on? What triggered this emotion? Also put in there, what did you notice about yourself physically? I told you a minute ago that you might have got hot or cold or heard a throbbing in your ears or felt in your forehead, something like that. What did you notice? Because the more you tune into that, then the faster you're going to notice when these things are happening and you can change how you react to them. So then that would be the next step. How did you react? What did you do? Based on your emotion, what actions did you take or didn't take? What did you say or not say? What impact did that have on those around you? And what might you want to do differently next time? That's all in your reflection sheet. I really challenge you to sit down and take heart as you fill that out to think about how this is impacting you and those around you. Now, your reflection question, and remember, this is a question not to just sit down and bang out an answer. Let this question sit and roll around in your brain for a little while and just think about it. When you're at your best as a leader, when you are so proud of what you're doing and you are impacting everybody around you in great ways, what beliefs about yourself and about those around you are you holding paramount in those moments? What emotions are driving you in those moments? And then, how can you capitalize? How can you get more of those beliefs and those emotions throughout your day? I hope this module gave you a good start. I can't wait to see you in Module 2. Every day is a new chapter in your leadership journey. Write it well and make it a great day.